Okay, so hi. Basically, I'm doing a tutorial. I haven't done one of these for a long time. Uh, this tutorial is going to be about top-down, like tile-based 2D physics. So basically, if you have like a game where you move your person around like this is the box I'm controlling this with W, A, S, and D. Now, I can move this guy around, but I wanted to make some kind of system where you could have barriers. So as soon as you hit it, you can't move anymore. And here I show that I'm trying to walk through this, right? But he does the player, this box that I'm controlling, doesn't go through the barrier. Now, this works really well for what I want. Now, if you somehow happen to hit it perfectly, like corner to corner, I've only ever done it once by accident, but it does let you in for some reason, and it lets you into the cube. I don't know how to fix that. Anyway, so yeah, this is just an example. I'm going to be doing this whole thing in this video. I'm going to be remaking it step by step. If you look, actually, this cube right here, this barrier, is actually 10 barriers all in the same spot. So when I'm making them, I'm just setting all of their values to basically the middle of the screen. But if I was to say for each one, if I was to set random positions, let's do between negative width and width. And what this will do is it'll make it the same on the height. What this will do is it will make its position anywhere from, from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, but that might be a little too small of an area. So I'm going to make it like some of them won't actually be on screen for some reason. Alright, so here's a good example. So 4 of them ended up on the screen. Each collision with each of them works separately and individually. This was a problem I was having with when I was like testing this and making the original concept. For some reason, it wasn't always colliding with each one separately, but this works totally fine. So you could have like if I was to base the position on I in the initializing loop or whatever, here we go. If I set this just to height divided by 2, and this would be equal to, let's say I times 50, right? Okay, this will make a wall, basically, in the middle. Now, I can't get out. Okay, so I get out. It lets you out if you're stuck inside. Now I can't get through any of them. So this is just a big old wall, right? So you can use this for a lot of stuff. You can use this for games. I'm using it for a game that I'm making. I won't show that now though, but yeah, basically this is the thing we're gonna be making. So I don't know how long this video is becoming. 3 minutes so far. Alright, we got time. I'm gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna set up while I'm doing this, by the way, I'm assuming that the people watching this have some background knowledge. If you don't, I will put links to tutorials in the description to all this stuff, like everything you're gonna need. Anyway, we're going to be using like p vectors a lot and stuff. So I'm going to set the size of my screen because I always do this. I'm going to set it to 800 and 450. And the background, let's just go ahead and make it that. And I'm going to run the program. So yeah, I have a window. Just go ahead and make your own window. And now we can start getting into, we're going to do the player controller first. So I'm going to do this using object-oriented programming. I'm going to make the player a class. And inside of this player class, we're going to need the constructor. And yeah, now the player has a few variables. Like I said, I'm going to be using p vectors for this. P vectors are basically just coordinates of position, right? And since this is in 2D, the p vector only holds 2 coordinates, an x and a y. So this thing right here would be the same as just saying int x and int y, right? It's just all in one. So yeah, if you don't know that, go look it up, learn about it. Anyway, down here I'm going to say position equals new p vector, and then we can go ahead and just pass in an argument to the constructor. I will say p vector. Yeah, you know what? I can do this. I'm just going to do it this way, actually. All right, so position this dot position. If you don't know what this means either, again, look it up. I'm assuming a fair amount of background knowledge because I don't want to have to explain all this stuff. So basically I'm making a class. Inside the class I'm making a variable for the player, which is the position of the player. I'm also going to need the width and the height of the variable, or the player. So we need these separate. We need the width and the height for the collision detection that we're going to be doing. So for now, I'm just going to hard code these and say like the width is 50 and the height is 50. You can pass in arguments. For the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to. So that's the position and the size. We're also going to need some methods. I'm going to need void update. Now this will be updating the player's position when I press a key. So if I press W, it will move the player up real fast. I'm going to check the sound. Okay. So this is going to check. This is going to basically update the position of the player and anything else you might want to add. I'm also going to have a method to render the player onto the screen, and this will just be, for now, a rectangle at the position that we specified up at the top, and with the width and height that we said. Also, this is going to be drawn from the middle, so I'm going to be using rect mode. Alright, there we go. Now, so basically, recap. We have a player class. He has the position of the player and the width and the height. Now, down here in render, in the render method, there's only two methods, which is, I think that's all we're going to have this whole time, so it's pretty simple. In this, we're going to basically make a rectangle at that position and at that width and height, so that way if we do physics later, it'll line up with the rectangle. So over here we can go ahead and make that player. I'm going to say player, so the class is capital P. I'm just going to, sake of simplicity, I'm just going to make mine a lowercase p. There we go. Now we have to pass in an argument for this. We have to give it a position, so new p vector, and the type is a p vector. That's why I'm saying new p vector over here. Let's just make this in the middle of the screen. Okay, so now we have the player, and then we have to call its methods over here. So update first, and then render the player. Okay, so recap. We have a player. We put it in the center of the screen by giving it those arguments, and now we're updating it every frame and rendering it every frame. So far it's pretty simple. Hopefully you get this. If you don't get this stuff, you probably have to learn a little bit more before you watch this tutorial. So in update, like I said, we're going to be moving the player. We're actually not going to be moving the player in update. The way I'm going to do player movement is I'm going to make another tab called Control Manager. Now I really like keeping my stuff organized. That's why I'm going to be making quite a few tabs. If you look in the example, there's several tabs. Okay, so here we're going to be calling the Keypressed Function and the Key Released Function. Now, in Keypressed, this is basically the same as if I just put it directly under draw like this, but it's just in another tab, by the way. So in the Keypressed function, I'm going to have some if statements, right? If I press a key, and if that key, by the way, when you're doing this, make sure it's these single quotes, not the double quotes, because that won't work. So you can also use key codes with your numbers, but that's a little confusing. If the key is equal to W, right, then make the player move up, basically. Now, how are we going to make the player move up? Well, we'll worry about that later. For now, I'm just going to do this for every single key that I want. So I want W, A, S, and D. So it's up, down, left, and right. All right. So we have that. Now we need to make a way to make the player move. Now we could say player.position.x or y. This is W, so that's up. Minus equals, 1, and that would move the player up. Now, if we go ahead and run this, that will move the player up by 1. If you look, every time I'm pressing, it's moving up very slowly. But I want to be able to hold down W and just make it go up like that, which it is kind of doing. But you'll see, it's going very slow first of all, so that's one thing we're going to do real fast. in player, now if you ever want to pause the video, feel free to do that if I'm going too fast. But in player, instead of just saying player.position.y minus equals 1 and going in here and changing it each time like this number 1, I'm going to go ahead and set up a variable in player itself called speed. I will make it an integer because I don't want to worry about floats right now. They can mess stuff up, especially when you're working with like different functions. I'll show you later. Anyway, so we have speed. I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to 4, and then instead of -1, we can say player.speed. Okay. Now, there's still a problem with this, but this works. If you notice, I press W and it goes up. But there's a weird glitch thing here where the moment, if you've been following along, you can test it on yours. As soon as I press W, it goes up, stops, and then continues to go when I hold. I don't want that. I want it to just start going up as soon as I press. So I'll show that again real fast. I'll try to press it loud so you can hear. You see that? It does it one time, stops, and then goes. I don't want that. So this is not going to work. In player, remember we had update. We're going to need to make some booleans for what direction the player is moving. So I might split this up into 2 videos. I might make just the player movement in this one, and then in the next one I'll make the actual collisions. So anyway, back to the topic. In the player class, we have boolean up, I will call it. Okay. Now in update, I can say by default it'll equal false. A better name, just for sake of understanding better. I'll call it moving up. So in update, we can say if we are moving up, so if moving up is equal to true, all right, then do this. Now this is going to this will work, right? I spelled this wrong, sorry. I'm an idiot. Okay, if moving up is equal to true, then move the player upwards. Now you can probably guess what we're going to do over here in Keypressed. We're just going to say player dot moving up equals true. Now this might be a little weird. You're like, well, why are you doing that? That's the same thing. There shouldn't be any different, right? Well, it actually gets rid of that initial like stop. You notice as soon as I press W, it just goes straight up, right? It doesn't stop and then pause and then go up. It just goes straight up as soon as I start pressing. Now it's not stopping when I let go. If you look, the box, as soon as I press W, what's happening is it's saying player.moveUp equals true. So then this is being set from false to true. This says, oh, moving up is true. So now start doing this every single frame. Because if you remember, update's getting called over here. Now, moving up's never getting set to false again. I'm just pressing it, it's setting to true, and then there's nowhere else where I ever set it to false again. So it's true every time. So as soon as I press W once, it just starts flying up. Now that's what key released is for. If I'm going to go ahead and take this, put it down here, and say when the key is released, so when I let go, and then it checks what key I'm letting go. If I'm letting go of the key W, set player.movingUp back to false. Okay, so hopefully that works. We're going to go ahead and test that. Yes, it does. So I press it, it goes up, and then I let go. That is perfect. That is what we want. Now we just need to do it for every single key. So we're going to make one for every single thing. There's 4 keys, WASD. We're going to have moving up, down, left, and right. Now this is a little much. I don't really like having 4 of them here, and later I'm going to change this to 1 array. But for now we're just going to have this for sake of understanding, and then I'll change it. Okay. So we're going to need to check this right here for each one of those. If moving up is equal to true, so now it's if moving down, left, and right. I like doing things, by the way, in the order of up, down, left, right. It's just easier to understand. So if it's up, then the player's dot position dot y, so the player's up and down vertical position, gets taken away from by an increment of speed. So now if we're moving down, it's going to be added, because that's how processing works. It's negative up, positive down. You know that, because yeah, if you don't know that, you need to. This probably isn't the best tutorial for you. Anyway, now we're doing x. If we're moving left, yes, it's minus, and if we're moving right, the x position is going to get added. So if you don't have this copied down, do it right now. Pause the video. This is what this tab is. Basically, this is what this tab is. We're not done with this tab yet, and obviously this tab's pretty small. So we have this, right? If it's moving up, then move up. Down, then move down. If we're moving left, move left, and so on, you know? So hopefully you understand that. Over here, I'm definitely going to split up this into 2 videos, by the way. This is just part 1, because this is like 15 minutes so far. Over here, we have player moving up equals true. Now we got to do the same thing for each one of these. So now player moving down on S, because I notice I did this in order of up, down, left, right, and I'm always going to do that order for everything. So that way it's just easier for me to remember when I'm dealing with player movement. It's up, down, left, right, and so is this. That's why I did WSAD instead of the default WASD. So moving up, down, and then we have left and right. Now I'm just going to copy this and put it into key released, because it's the same thing, but we're just setting this to false, right? So hopefully you understand what this is. Recap real fast. Whenever I press the key W, now this is the same for all of them, whenever I press W, what's going to happen? Player moving up gets set to true. So we go over to player. Now we pretend this equals true. So down here in update, this gets called in draw now, okay? So I press W, and now it gets set to true. Now update's called. In update, the first if statement is if moving up is equal to true, which it is because I just pressed W, then start changing the position of the player towards the top of the screen. Now I let go of W on the next frame, okay? So now this would equal false. So it goes through to update. This equals false now, so this doesn't get called. Let's test it, and let's see if it works. Should work for each one individually, and it does. Cool. Now we have player movement. So that's all I'm going to do for this video. Now we have this guy moving around. Very simple player movement. Next video I'm going to get into the actual collisions, because this is way too long already. So yeah, cool. I mean, subscribe if you want. I could care less. I was just making this because, you know, there was no other videos on the internet saying how to do this kind of thing, and it was really helpful for my game. So yeah, I'll see whoever's watching this in the next one.